Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Flo and this is my first ever booktube video. Before I get into the books I read in August and the ones I'm hoping to read in September, I thought I would do like a quick fire get to know me booktube newbie edition. So as I mentioned, my name is Flo, I live in London. I actually live with my really cute working Cocker Spaniel Lola. She's 4 years old. She's just the cutest thing. I also read a lot. I'm a complete reading addict. I have read 77 books so far this year. I'd originally set out to read 60, but I don't know what it is. I'm having a really good year, so I increased my Goodreads goal to 100. So if you want to be friends on Goodreads, I will link my Goodreads in the description below. I also write. So I write contemporary romance. I have self-published 2 college romance books. The first one is called Complicated You. I'll link it in the description below. The royalties go to charity. So let's get into the books that I read this August. So as you can see, I've had a really good reading month, but I should caveat this and say that I have been on a book buying ban, I think since the beginning of June, just with the cost of living crisis, and also I had so many paperbacks that I haven't read. So these books are kind of a mix of ones that I've had for years and completely forgotten about versus ones that I've recently bought. I thought I would separate and categorize these. So I think I'm going to start with the 3 books that I rated 5 stars, and these are literally like inject them into my veins, the best books I have read this month. I'm going to start with Sally Rooney, Normal People. I think I read this first out of these 3 anyway. I'm late on the bandwagon to read this book. I feel like everybody has already read this book, and I actually weirdly watched the TV series before I read this book. In a way it helped me. I think I loved it more because I'd watched the TV series first. Like, this kind of goes without saying, I have seen so many good things about the Magnolia Parks universe. Weirdly, I didn't love Magnolia Parks. I think I found it like a little bit too toxic, but I don't know if it's because I read it on paperback, but I read this on audiobook, and oh my god, when I say the actors that they had picked to do the audiobook were phenomenal. Like, every time Christian Hems came on, it was just everything. And so I'm really glad that I loved it, because I was really disappointed with the first book in the series. So I'm hoping now that I've fallen in love with the universe, I will just like love all of the other books. And I hear that they just get better and better anyway. And then my next 5-star read was The Law of Moses. It was a bit more of like an emotional book for me. I found like it has quite a lot of like raw and sensitive topics. I would check the trigger warnings, but I do love a self-published book. I actually read this as part of a 24-hour reading marathon, and there were times where I wanted to like sit with it for a bit, so I would like slowly read it just so that I could be in the feels a bit more, which is maybe not the point of a 24-hour reading marathon, but I didn't want it to end. I don't know if anybody else does this, but when you get to like the last 50 pages of a book, when you go, like, I always go slow when I read it because I just don't want the world or the book to finish. And so I feel like after giving a high, I need to go to my lowest low, which is the books that I rated the lowest. I actually haven't DNF'd a book ever, but I kind of wish I could have DNF'd these. I just don't have the strength to DNF. My first book that I didn't enjoy is Weather Girl. It's a rom-com. I don't love rom-coms anyway. I think there's only a certain few rom-coms that I have rated above a 3-star, so I think it's just not my genre. I think I like maybe the more like emotional and sad romance novels, and I just didn't connect with the characters, so I gave this maybe 2 stars. And then the next book I read, I actually listened to this on audiobook. I borrowed it from the library app called Libby. You can like connect your library card to it and you can get audiobooks for free, and you just use the app on your phone. You can also get ebooks. So I listened to this on Libby, so I'm kind of glad I did because I didn't spend any extra money on this book. It's just like one of these books that was on my TBR for years. Like, I don't even know if my mum bought this book to start with, like back when I used to live with her in high school. So just a really silly plot. Again, I think it's supposed to be like slightly comedy. It's not romance. It's like, obviously it's like mystery, and it's about how the main character is trying to track down like a famous pop singer or something. Really long, really thick, and just not my cup of tea. So moving on, I have like a random subcategory of this. So I've gone through my highest star ratings and my lowest. These are actually the books that surprised me the most as I was going through this, and they surprised me for different reasons. So if I start with this book, a really random one, I think it was like a charity shop book that I had on my shelf for like 2-3 years. It surprised me because I really enjoyed it. I think I rated it 4 stars. Again, I got it on Libby because I don't just read books on paperback, I also listen to a lot of audiobooks. It's like listening to it on a dog walk, like really into the story. It's historical romance fiction, and I would actually really recommend this book. So then the next book that surprised me was this book, and I think a lot of people would go, oh, I bet it surprised you because you really enjoyed it. I'm so disappointed. I love Lauren Asher as an author. I think I rated this book 3 stars in the end. I love Lauren Asher. I love the Dirty Air series, and I loved that there was mental health representation in this book, but this just disappointed me. The main character, Jax, he is supposed to be British, and as someone who's British myself, I just found like the British slang that they were using and like the colloquialisms were just way off. When I saw a word used in the wrong way for British slang, I would like pause and I would cringe, and it would just like disrupt and take me out of the story. If that wasn't the case, I think I would have given this 5 stars, but I was disappointed. And I read it in paperback, and it took me a lot longer to get through than any of Lauren Asher's other books, so really disappointed. Moving to another stack of books that I enjoyed. Starting with Love Lockdown. I probably read this a bit later than I should have because, as the title gives away, it's about people in lockdown. I actually listened to this again on audiobook, and I really enjoyed the plot. Maybe I gave it 3 or 4 stars. I listened to it during my 24-hour reading marathon, and it was really easy to like pick up, listen to, get back into the plot. Yeah, like a really comforting read. This next book was another book that I had for years on my shelf. I listened to it. If I'm not too like bothered about a book, I will always just use the audiobook. So again, I found the audiobook for free on the Libby app, listened to it, really loved like the plot and the characters. Again, I think it was a 4 star or maybe 3 star, but it was an easy read. I enjoyed it. It flew by, so I think that's always a good sign. And the next book is the final book in the Me Before You, Me After You series. Oh, I don't know, there's a movie about it. The same with Normal People. I watched, oh yeah, Me Before You. I watched Me Before You before I read the book, but I think that actually helped me enjoy it more. I think I gave this whole trilogy 4 stars. Okay, so the last book in the books that I enjoyed but weren't 5 star, like did not grip me, but was still a really good read, was Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? I don't actually think I rated this book. I don't actually think I rated this book because it's non-fiction. It's like a toolkit for mental health, and so very different to my usual genre, but also very different to like my ratings. And so I didn't want to rate a book that was like is it self-help? But like a toolkitty type book on mental health. Not something I would recommend sitting down and reading from start to finish. I would just pick a chapter that you feel like applies to you in that moment and do that. These are the last books in my sort of reading wrap up for August, and this is a tier below the category that I just did. So these were like solid either 3 stars or 2 stars. Like starting with Tessa Bailey, Fix Her Up. Again, I listened to the audiobook of this. I listened to a lot of audiobooks this month. Didn't have high expectations because I mean it was only £2.50 anyway. I just did not pay attention to the plot. It didn't grip me as I was listening. Found myself spacing out or thinking about other things, which kind of indicates that the story didn't really grip me. And then the next book, Page 2 in the Minute I Saw You. I have another of her books that will be on my TBR for September. I find her writing like a little bit like, I don't love it. I don't love the way she like does dialogue between characters, so sometimes it really puts me off. And again, just not really like wildly my cup of tea. So then I thought I would discuss these 2 books together because they're both coho. Again, have been on my bookshelf for quite some time, and the only reason I'm reading them is because I'm doing this TBR challenge. Read this one on paperback, listened to the audiobook of this one. Much to the same theme as this category, didn't really pay much attention to this book as I was listening to it because I just didn't find it gripping. Maybe it was a 3-star. And then this book, I rated it 3-star, I think. Super different to any of the other books. And I think I did like an Instagram post and I asked if people had read it, and a lot of people say the same thing, where they're like, it's really different to any other book that Toho has written. And for that, like, it kind of let a lot of people down and found it really hard to connect with the characters on this one. So, and then I listened to Girl Crush on audiobook. Again, I used the library app Libby to listen to it because this has been on my TBR for ages, and I knew I just wouldn't get to it if I was reading it physically. It doesn't get that great reviews on Goodreads, I would say that. So actually I went into this with extremely low expectations, which I actually think helped because I enjoyed it more than like what my expectations were. Still wasn't like, oh my god, I love this book. I felt like I much preferred her non-fiction book, which I think is what a lot of people say, but I would really rate Florence Given's Women Don't Know You Pretty if you want to get into this author. To finally finish my reading wrap up for August, I listened to House of Gucci. Found it really entertaining. It was just a little bit too long. I found some of the topics like really interesting. They focused more on like the financial dramas a bit too much, and even as like someone that works in the financial industry, I'm a finance girl, and I still struggle to like keep up with some of the topics sometimes. Couldn't really give this above, I believe, 3 or 4 stars, but maybe I didn't rate it because I think I felt like I couldn't rate something that was based upon like a historical event. So that wraps up the books that I read in August, and now I'm going to take you through my September hopefuls. These are the only books I've got left on my physical TBR, so I really think I can get through this book Bang Bang in September. So that is the hope, and these are the books that I've got left. I started listening to this one already. I'm hoping that I can get most of these for free on the Libby app to listen to, because I think I'll just fly through it way quicker. And I'm really ready for this book Bang Bang to be over. But to spotlight 2 books that are on my physical TBR that I really want to get to is like the 2 books in the ACOTAR series, the first 2. I'm late on the ACOTAR bandwagon. I feel like it's been so overhyped that I'm like scared to start it, and I think I'm gonna do these after I've read these, because even though I desperately want to get to them, I know that if the hype is like completely correct, which I feel like it will be, I'm gonna want to jump straight from this one to the next book, because I feel like that about the Magnolia Park series, but I can't buy any more books. So I'm gonna do these at the end. They'll be my celebratory reads. And then I also got given these 2 books by my friends. They bought these books for me, and so these are on the September hopefuls. They're not part of the TBR challenge because they bought these for me later, but I've heard so many good things about this book, so I'm really, really excited to get to these 2 as well. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you think. Agree with my ratings, or whether you rated any of the books slightly different. I know some of the books that are on my physical TBR are a bit rogue for me, so hopefully the next wrap up I do will be more like in line with my actual book taste, instead of like random ones that I'm reading because they were on my shelf for like 8 years. So that wraps up not just my August reading wrap up and my September hopefuls, but my first ever BookTube video. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any ideas for videos that you want to see me do, please put a comment below. And thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.